Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our weekly Facebook Live. For those of you just tuning in for the very first time, I'll introduce myself and then I will introduce my guest on today's show. So I am Amie Hornaman. I'm a functional medicine practitioner specializing in treating thyroid conditions, hormone imbalances, and basically just all around fixing people. So today, let me introduce Mimi, and then I will tell you my story, and I will hand over the mic to her with a lot of questions. And as always, I encourage you all, as you're listening to this, please feel free to reach out with your questions. We will get to those at the end. So Mimi is a podcast host, culinary nutrition expert, AHCC educator, which we will be diving into today, and registered dental hygienist. She teaches people how to use food as medicine. Very, very important. That's what we always talk about, to prevent and reverse different types of chronic illness, specifically with mushrooms and AHCC. Mimi has committed herself to being a link from clinical research behind AHCC to the public via online education, social media, and her podcast, The Medicine, which I highly encourage you all to check out. So my brief story before I fully introduce Mimi and let her talk is I have to tell this. So I am, when it comes to new things that I'm learning about, I am always very skeptical. I could hear about something and then I would go, yeah, I'll look into that. It sounds interesting. And then I need to hear about it a couple more times. And I go, I'll look into that. It sounds interesting. I heard Mimi on a podcast being interviewed about AHCC. I literally just randomly clicked on this podcast one Sunday afternoon, and that's all I needed to hear. I immediately went to her website. I contacted her. We connected. We are total soul sisters in the way that we think. And here's the relationship from there. But my point is, her message about AHCC, which I'm hoping that you will all get today, was just, it struck me as being so powerful. It's almost like it just spoke to me and I acted because I knew in my heart, in my gut, that this was something very important for myself, my family, my patients, and for all of you to know about and learn about and get the message out about. I immediately placed an order, and from there, here we are talking about it. So Mimi, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the Facebook Live show.
Thanks, Amie. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So I want you to tell your story of how you became an expert on AHCC, which, by the way, for all of you listening, she's going to dive into it. Some people call it a mushroom. It's really a functional food. She'll tell you about it. It is the most clinically researched functional food in the world. It has 33 years of clinical research behind it, which I was blown away. So what got you into this?
Yes, honestly, the first thing, like you mentioned in the intro, I am a registered dental hygienist, and I don't practice clinically because my work around AHCC and spreading that information has pulled me in a different direction. But when I was practicing clinically, this was 3 years ago now, I had a patient who got diagnosed with HPV later in life. She was about 55, and she actually told me that her naturopath recommended this mushroom, and it helped her clear her HPV. And seeing so many different patients every single day, looking at thousands and thousands of medical histories, I had never seen or heard about anyone taking anything that has worked with HPV or worked on clearing HPV like this. So I was immediately really intrigued. And then I was also kind of like taken back. Like I had my like ego kind of like stepped on a little bit because I thought I knew about mushrooms. You know, I was like, oh, is it chaga, reishi, lion's mane? Which mushroom? And she said the name AHCC, and I was like, that's not a mushroom. I thought I knew. And then after speaking with her, I went to Dr. Google and looked it up and saw all the reviews. And then I was like, and then it led me to actually the research organization. There's a whole research organization that centers around spreading information around the clinical research, which you mentioned, there's 33 years of it, making it the most clinically researched functional food in the world. And when I saw that there was all of this research, again, my ego took a little hit it because I was like, how have I not heard about this? I've been in the healthcare industry. I am a practitioner. I pride myself on being up to date with, the latest and greatest when it comes to health and wellness. Why have I not heard about this? And I know mushrooms. Why have I not heard about this? And it was kind of, once I got into the research and everything and saw how vast and how broad the benefits are for all different types of diseases and conditions, it kind of got me angry at that point, thinking about, why isn't every medical school using this if it is such a tool for helping with the innate and acquired immune intelligence that we all need to live a disease-free, healthy, happy life? Why is this not used? And so then my curiosity mixed with my kind of frustration / anger and my fascination with mushrooms in general led me down this very long rabbit trail that I'm still on, to start discovering and researching and teaching people about AHCC and providing it actually now as it's a private label that I offer now, because I'm so 150% confident that it needs to be in every single body.
And I agree. And we're going to dive into that for sure. At the end, we're going to give people information on where to get it. We're going to give a 10% off link code. So no worries there. It is in the description of the Facebook Live up top. So if you look in the description, the link is there, but we'll talk about that more at the end and remind people how to get their hands on it. But just like you, Mimi, I kind of feel like, why haven't I heard about this if I've been in this business for 24 years? So, just like you've said before, this is the key to getting it out. So you educate educators, and then we get it out to the public. And that's really the way to spread the word. And we're going to dive into, I want to ask you a little bit about the immune intelligence and how it relates to cancer and autoimmune. But let's just say it, chemotherapy is a $500 billion business. Maybe why we haven't heard about it is because that would take away money from big pharma. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to use logic. And I say that because it's not a conspiracy theory that, these certain companies make literally millions of dollars per day on whether it be vaccines or pharmaceuticals, medications that they want their customer to continue taking. It goes against everything in human nature for them to create a product that they don't want people to use, right? So without getting too far into the weeds, it's just common sense logic that if something is available online, direct to consumer for $90 versus something that gives individual, physicians up to 20 grand in kickbacks, they don't have much incentive. And I'm not grouping all together. I'm not doing that. But right. As a whole, there is not a lot of incentive to branch with their very packed schedules and busy families. They have their own lives. And unfortunately, our system is not set up in the way that the doctors get paid once the person is well, right? It's not set up in that way. If that incentive was there, maybe they would have more of a kind of a fire under them to find other avenues to get people truly healthy, not just the cancer suppressed for a time, but really getting the person's immune system on track. Then I think then we would see a lot more in the space of functional food and natural medicine, because that's ultimately what AHCC does. And I know we're going to get into this, but it really acts on the person's immune system, and then that immune system, that intelligent system, now goes to work on the cancer, the viruses, the bacteria, the fungal infections. So the body is actually doing the work, not the AHCC, not the drug. Your body is doing the work, which ultimately is what always heals us 100% of the time. If we get healed or cleared, it's our body that does it. It's not the medication. It's not the whatever functional food. It's your body.
Right. And our body has that innate intelligence. So with AHCC, we have almost an immune intelligence, an innate intelligence. So go ahead and run with that. Talk about how it can upregulate the immune system, and it can also downregulate it in terms of autoimmune disease. So go ahead and expand on that for everyone.
Yeah, so AHCC stands for active hexose correlated compound. It is not a mushroom itself, but it comes from mushrooms. It comes from shiitake, which has been used for thousands of years for its medicinal benefits. And some researchers and physicians in Japan in the late 80s actually put it under a microscope and started studying it. And they actually saw that the mycelium, the root-like structure, so when we think of a mushroom, we think of above ground, right? That little thing that pops up out of the ground. That's the mushroom. That's the fruiting body. Below the ground is the mycelium. And this is kind of like a root system, but I want people to think of it more like a network of intelligence. So mycelium and mushrooms in general are dynamic. They are sentient. They are intelligent organisms that can navigate through the soil around pathogenic bacteria and possible toxins in their environment. So you could say that the mycelium of the mushroom is technically the immune system of that mushroom organism. So they noticed this, they saw this, and they actually found a way to encapsulate it and under the strictest manufacturing standards, equal to that of any pharmaceutical or medication out there. Yeah. And if your listeners, followers don't know, Japan has extremely high standards for manufacturing. So it comes from the best possible top shelf.
That's AHCC I didn't even know that. Yeah, about Japan.
Yes, so it is a patented product. So when you see the words or the letters AHCC, you know you're getting it from one source if they're selling it legally, like I do. Right. So you know it's a good top shelf source. So with that immune system of the mushroom organism, your basically your body is receiving that intelligence. And in case you don't know, fungal DNA is actually really closely related to human DNA. We actually come from the same super kingdom. We're more closely related to fungi than plants. So fungi are more closely related to us than they are plants. A lot of people think that mushrooms are plants or a vegetable. They are not. They're more like humans and animals than they are plants. So that is just a little nugget to tell people like this belongs in us. Our bodies recognize it very, very easily, and we respond really well to this intelligence that it's giving us. So when I say intelligence, what I mean is that, as you stated, AHCC and other mushroom products have an ability to regulate the immune system, to normalize it, versus medications that just suppress it in the case of autoimmune disorders. Right. Or, in the case of chemotherapy, same thing. But say, the person has HPV or another type of virus, any virus, fill in the blank, your body actually needs a boost in your immune system, right? Well, AHCC has the ability to recognize what your body needs and then give that to you by normalizing, by providing more intelligence. So I liken it to, if your immune system is an army within your body, it's your body's defense system, intelligence system. It's like multiplying your immune army by 300% and then giving every single soldier or immune cell a 5G satellite radio with a selfie light. Every single cell knows what every other single cell is doing, and they all have the same mission. That's what's important. They all are on the same mission to increase this intelligence and get rid of whatever invader or pathogen or whatever. So it's getting your body in a state that is conducive for healing or clearing whatever it is that you're dealing with.
That's fascinating. That is absolutely amazing. So when we're talking about, right, so when we're talking about autoimmune, we want to, so those of you with autoimmune, you'll understand this. Some people are so bad that they actually have to take an autoimmune suppressant medication. And then some of us, some people with, let's say Hashimoto's, RA, Crohn's, they can go without the heavy meds, but they try to regulate it on their own and basically keep the bad soldiers from going out and attacking whatever is connected to that autoimmune. So RA would be joints, Crohn's would be the gut. And with AHCC, it's actually controlling the bad soldiers and increasing the good at the same time. So then the good soldiers would be like those getting rid of cancer or protecting us against cancer. And we can't, I know we can't say prevention or cure, but essentially if we could say that about this product because that's what it has the possibility of doing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are countless stories. I don't make any claims whatsoever just because everybody is different.
Right.
But if someone asks the question, has this helped clear, viruses? Has it helped clear HPV? Well, I already told you it has. It has clinical research behind. Really, it's the only answer for HPV right now. And in the case of cancer, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases and clinical trials where people have stage 4 cancer and they have no other option. So they try this immune drug, this immune functional food, AHCC. And within a month or two, doctors are dumbfounded. They are like, we don't know where your cancer is. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's happening inside your body because now your body has the intelligence that it's so wanted all of this time. And that's the thing with cancer and chemotherapy. That's why we hear about so much, cancer, it came back. Well, it didn't ever leave, right? We always have cancer cells, mutated cells in our body all of the time. You and I do right now, always. Yep. It's our body, it's our immune system's job to recognize and detect and get rid of these cells before they become a problem. So if you, in the case of cancer, just suppress the immune system with chemotherapy and you kill all of these cells, these cancer cells, along with other good cells, yes, the cancer will look like it's gone. They got it all. Right? But
UPS man, it happens on Facebook Live sometimes. UPS man will come and the dog will bark. I apologize. Yes, go ahead.
So we'll be looking at, they got it all, right?
Right.
Well, it came back because people get their hopes up and then they're like, oh my gosh, it came back with a vengeance even because now this chemotherapy has completely wiped out any immune system that you had in the first place, even though it was suppressed, right? It's wiped out completely now. And now the cancer comes back usually even more aggressive than the first time. So that's where I have a problem with, no real education. I won't say none, but the majority of doctors are not even doing education around what you should be eating and not eating, how to support your immune system, sleep, stress, all of that. We are holistic organisms, and it's not just one drug that's going to get the job done for you. And if we don't address the immune system, it might be a year from now, it might be 6 months from now, it might be 4 years from now, but there's a good chance it's going to slip back in if you don't address that immune system.
Definitely. And that was the case with my father. He went through 7 rounds of chemo the first time. And then a year later, it came back more aggressively. So they said, okay, we have to do a bone marrow transplant now, because if we do chemo, it would just be salvage chemo, meaning it'll keep you alive for a little bit, but it's going to keep growing and come back worse and worse and keep being more aggressive each time. And so now I have him on AHCC because now post bone marrow transplant, they say that he is cancer free. But like you said, we know that there's still the mother cell.
Yes.
And there are other mutated cells beyond what was fixed with the bone marrow transplant and the chemo. So I think if we can do things ourselves to boost our bodies are smarter than we give them credit for. Our bodies are so smart. And if we give our body the tools to heal itself, it will do so. Now we can override that by piling on the processed foods and exposing ourselves to toxins and not dealing with stress and not sleeping well. All those things that you mentioned, we can override it. But if we support and support and support and nurture, it's amazing what the body can do. You have to tell the story of the Japanese boy with a brain tumor too.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories. There was a 21-year-old Japanese young man who started having some really odd symptoms. He started having kind of narrowing of vision, nausea, dizziness, couldn't stand up, vertigo, like just all of a sudden it was really weird. So he goes to a hospital and finally gets diagnosed with medulloblastoma, which is a type of brain cancer that is almost impossible to treat because it's not just one tumor that they can radiate or, this distinct tumor that they can somehow surgically remove. It's actually the cancer cells are kind of woven into healthy brain tissue and healthy cells. So it's really hard to treat. So these doctors basically told him the situation, that it's really serious and we don't have many options for you. They did try radiation and chemotherapy to no avail. It didn't touch it, which they were expecting. And so they told this young man that you're better off just kind of going home and living out your last few months at home with your family, being comfortable. And some angel, upon leaving this hospital, introduced him to AHCC and he started taking it. He had no other options. And within, I think, a few weeks, his symptoms started to clear. He started getting his vision back. Headaches were disappearing. He was more stable on his feet. And then 4 months goes by and his symptoms are completely gone. And he goes back to this hospital, gets scanned again. They reassess everything and his cancer is completely gone. They can't find it. Then fast forward 3 years out, there's still no trace of cancer in his brain. And he went back to school, went back to college, went on with his life, thankfully, to AHCC.
That's amazing. That's such an incredible story. I love that story. And I'm sure there are more. I mean, when you dive into the research and really start reading about AHCC, because I'm sure many of you, most of you are like, I have never heard of this, right? But there's a lot of valid research out there. There's a book that you directed me to, Mimi, on Amazon that I think would be great for the layperson, if you want to tell them about that.
Yeah, it's called AHCC, the Natural Breakthrough in Immunotherapy, or the Japanese Breakthrough in Natural Immunotherapy, rather. And it's by Dr. Fred Pescatore, who I have also interviewed on my podcast as well. He was one of the first physicians in the US to use it with his patients. He's more of an integrative. He is an MD, but he practices like a functional doctor.
Right.
And so he kind of was skeptical about it, and he started using it on all of his hardest patients that he had a really, really difficult time treating. Back in the early 90s, this was liver disease patients and even some HIV patients. All across the board. He used it on everyone, and because he really wanted to put it to the test. And his story is on my podcast. You can check it out. But this book is, I call it my AHCC Bible, because any consumer can read it for sure, but it does read a little like a textbook.
Okay.
So there is a lot of scientific language in there, but I mean, there's the stories are anyone can read. So and it's very small, but it's a great resource. If anyone listening or someone they love is experiencing chronic disease, I would absolutely point you in that direction if you need a physical resource like that, for sure.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for mentioning that. So you've talked about HPV. You just mentioned HIV. And then what about Lyme disease? What about Epstein-Barr virus? What have you seen with those?
I have patients, or they're not my patients. Sorry, I'm still in like dental hygienist mode. They're
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
clients now, but clients and customers that buy AHCC with Lyme, and a couple girls. One of them is actually one of my ambassadors now because it's completely changed her life, and she wants to go on teaching people about it. She and her father both have Lyme, chronic Lyme disease, and when she started taking this, I think after a month, she said that she's never had anything that touches her fatigue and her low energy and just general, like she just says she feels like she has the flu all of the time. And she said this is the only thing that's helped her this much in years. So that's really nice to hear. And also with her dad, he's been dealing with this for, I think, upwards of like 20 years. And same thing for him. It's helping him gloriously. And there is clinical research related to AHCC and Lyme. Patients for anywhere from 18 to 80 years old took AHCC for 8 weeks. It was 3 grams, which is 4 of my capsules. They took this for 2 months, and 100% of people had their symptoms either all the way ameliorated or partially. So maybe they would get there in month 3 or whatever, but the point is that 100% of people felt a positive difference, felt a positive change. And you mentioned Epstein-Barr. I haven't seen an actual study with that, but the same thing is happening in all of these bodies. This person, whoever we're talking about, whether it's HIV, HPV, cancer, Lyme, there is a breakdown in the immune response somewhere. There's no way really for you or I to know and to be able to pinpoint in the body what happened. Did you have a stressful week? Something happen when you were in your utero? What happened? We may not ever know, but there is a breakdown somewhere with all of these people. And so AHCC is providing that intelligence for their system in every single one of these cases and delivering basically what that specific person needs. So I feel 100% confident recommending it to basically anyone. You'd be surprised at how many conditions come into my DMs, people with these kind of really rare, odd conditions. And they're like, hey, have you heard of fill in the blank? Do you think AHCC could help with this? And sometimes I've never heard of it. I have to Google it. And I have to look at like, how does this even manifest? What are the symptoms? And because I know it's safe for everyone, kids, grandmas who just had surgery, people, taking other medications, it's safe for literally everyone. I feel 100% fine recommending it to people. And I tell them, hey, keep me updated because there's literally no downside, and take it for a month and monitor your symptoms. Let me know how you feel, because then someone else with this condition or disease might come to me and say, hey, have you seen this? And so that's how I basically am, at the center of this web, kind of connecting people. Oh yes, I have heard I have this other person that took this amount. So I'm kind of the go-to person in the middle. And I love that. I love that I can be that for people, for these really obscure symptoms and conditions and diseases that they're not getting help anywhere else, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that AHCC is the end all be all for everyone, but it's somewhere to start. And I feel so confident and blessed that I get to share this education.
Well, I love anecdotal evidence. I think sometimes the anecdotal evidence speaks more powerfully than a clinical trial, because we can look at the clinical trials and we can see, okay, there's like in the one you mentioned, 100%. Okay, 100% of people felt relief from symptoms. But, sometimes it's nice to hear real stories, like the Japanese boy that had brain cancer, like some of your own clients that are coming back and giving you feedback and saying, hey, this absolutely works. So in the case of the EBV, I would say logic can prevail. And if it works for HIV and it works for HPV, then chances are it's going to work for EBV. You can just kind of, connect the dots that way and use logic. But I love anecdotal evidence. Can you tell the story of your sister and her RA?
Yes. So unfortunately, my sister, who is 35, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I think about 7 years ago, in her late 20s after her fourth child. And it was kind of a shock because she's so young, and, lives a, pretty healthy lifestyle. But my grandma and my aunt both have RA as well. And so it was like, okay, there's obviously some sort of genetic link here. And she was prescribed methotrexate, which is, if your watchers, listeners, followers don't know, it's a really harsh immune suppressant that is usually used in chemotherapy. It's really, really harsh on the body, has some really gnarly side effects. And so she was trying to find a way to kind of decrease her dose. She still takes it, but I was able, finally, after a year of trying to convince her, because when you have a chronic issue like this, everyone's a doctor, right? Everyone has an answer. Everyone has a recommendation for you to try. Right. And I think she just didn't want to get let down again. So it took me a long time. Plus I'm little sister, right? Like she didn't really, like, there was some ego, there was some pride there that, like, maybe little sister knows. But finally she got on AHCC, and she takes a very small dose. And she said that the heat that she usually has in her hands, in her joints, that she wakes up with, even on methotrexate, she still wakes up with this heat in her joints. And when she got on AHCC, after about a week, the heat was gone. And that just, like, made me so happy, warms my heart. And she actually tested it out because she's married to a researcher, a biostatistician. So she was like, I'm going to test this. And so she removed it, or I think she actually just didn't order again or something.
Ran out, didn't order.
She had a lapse in using it for about 2 weeks, and that pain came back. She got on board again and ordered and started taking it again. And the heat, that pain in the morning, subsided. So she is a forever believer. And she's even told plenty of her friends and people she knows about it, which just makes me so happy that I'm able to bring this education to my own family.
Oh, that's wonderful. And for those of you who don't know, I mean, those who have any kind of autoimmune, you know that autoimmune can trickle into other autoimmune conditions. So for those who don't know, an autoimmune disease is basically where your body it's confused. So I use the analogy of soldiers. Those soldiers, they're confused, and they go out and they think that your joints are a bad guy, your thyroid's a bad guy, your gut's a bad guy. And they start to kind of beat it up and slowly destroy it. So in the case of RA, there's pain, there's inflammation. And when we see autoimmune in a family, like in your family, Mimi, it manifested as RA. But we can also see, okay, mom can have RA, daughter gets celiac disease or Crohn's disease. So autoimmune can be autoimmune in a different form as it goes down through the generations. And then one person can have one, and then have two, and have three, and have four. And that's why we want to keep the soldiers at bay, keep them quiet, the bad guys, release the good guys, keep the bad guys in the barracks so that they're not going out and finding something else to attack.
Right. Yes, exactly. And now there's over 80 plus autoimmune under this umbrella of autoimmune. So I'm hearing about new ones every day. And then I go and Google it and they say, well, we think that there's an autoimmune link. So there's just things flying at us all the time, whether it's in the air, in our food supply, in our water, unfortunately, all of these things, we're getting flooded with toxins. And if, it's a full-time job really for some people to keep those at bay and stay and feel and live healthy in a healthy way.
Yeah. I mean, autoimmune is tough. It's tough, but it's not doable. There's a double negative. So it is entirely possible to put autoimmune into remission. And a lot of that, it has to do with supporting your own immune system, kicking up that immune intelligence to downregulate the immune system and keep the soldiers in their barracks. It's entirely possible, no matter what autoimmune condition that you have. So absolutely. And then that kind of leads us into the inflammatory part. So, with RA, we're thinking, inflamed, red, hot, painful. AHCC can actually work on just systemic inflammation, right?
Yes. So yeah, the main benefit that I always talk about is first immune intelligence, but there are two other major benefits that we all need. One of them is decreasing systemic inflammation by decreasing CRP, C-reactive protein in the body.
Yep.
Which, if you get blood work done, that's how they measure basically inflammation in the body. And so if you can reduce CRP, then we know as a whole, your inflammation, your systemic inflammation is being reduced. So that's a huge benefit. And the other benefit, the third that I talk about a lot, is decreasing or regulating stress hormones in the body, like norepinephrine and cortisol. And I know everyone, the C word, cortisol, it kind of gets a bad rap. We do need it. It is something that we need. It's a hormone that we can't live without, but this chronic cortisol just amp up that we oftentimes are dealing with in our go kind of stressful everyday living is not healthy. It can do damage to the body. So AHCC is great that it actually regulates and lowers these stress hormones when they need to be lowered.
Yeah. Yeah. And with cortisol, so many of my patients, many of my listeners suffer from hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. And we always talk about the T4 to T3 conversion factor. So T4 being the inactive thyroid hormone, T3 being the active, T4 has to convert. Well, high cortisol can get in the way. I mean, we don't want low cortisol. That's a huge problem. But then we don't want high cortisol because that will interfere with T4 to T3 conversion. So even if you don't have a full adrenal blowout where we test you on a 4-point salivary and you're high at every single point, even if you're high on 1 or 2 points, AHCC could bring you back into balance by lowering the cortisol at that given time. So you have a high reading at noon, take it at noon or take it at 11 before you have that daily stress or whatever it is that's pushing your cortisol high.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's just wonderful. It's a really, this trifecta: immune intelligence, systemic inflammation, and managing stress hormones. I mean, give me a disease or a condition where one of those things is not involved, and like, it's impossible.
Inflammation and stress. I think that's driving the current state of disease, the high rate of disease that we have and are seeing these days. I really do.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
That paired with high insulin. So now we can talk about how HCC works on diabetes too. So when we're talking, we're talking about cortisol, insulin, which ultimately, those of you struggling with weight, this could help with weight loss. I know one interview that you did, I think it was Dr. Pompa, that said that he has had some of his patients lose weight on it, not because that's what they were taking it for, but because it regulated insulin and blood sugar too.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only insulin and blood sugar, it does have that ability. But as you know, when we're getting the body in a state that's conducive for healing, and the body literally says it's feeling like, okay, it's safe to heal, then excess weight literally just comes off of us when we're in this state that we need to be, right? And so to your point, the blood glucose and insulin, there was a clinical study with type 1 diabetics, and they did use AHCC to help regulate blood sugar, and it was effective. So it's not just helping type 1 diabetics, it's helping all of us because of the intelligence. And that's one of the positive kind of side effects that people notice. I don't make any claims towards this. It is not a weight loss functional food or anything. I don't say that. I don't even mention that. If that happens for someone, yes, I am so happy for you, right? But I don't ever like lead with that. Because really that should be a side effect of just overall health. Is our body is letting go of whether it be toxins or excess adipose tissue, whatever's sticking onto us. It should just kind of come off when we are in that state of health. And there's a lot of other like benefits or positive side effects, I will say, that come back to me that I don't advertise for, that just come back to me. One of them is weight loss. Another huge one is skin health. Again, our skin is a messenger. It's a billboard. If there is unease, if there is dis-ease in the body, and your body is working so hard to let you know, like, hey, something's wrong here. Something's off. Oftentimes it comes out as inflammatory acne or skin issues, skin conditions, whether it be eczema or whatever. And so our skin is trying to speak to us. And because AHCC works on the body itself, it calms it down, decreases that inflammation. Acne is an inflammatory response in the body. Decreasing that inflammation, oftentimes, one of the results is, I hear, oh my gosh, my hormonal acne is gone, or like, oh my gosh, I'm around my cycle and I didn't break out. Oh my gosh, I had one lady, she bought AHCC for herself. She's a nutritionist, and her 16-year-old daughter has horrible, really severe acne, and she's tried everything in her nutritionist tool belt to help her. She thought, well, maybe I'll just try AHCC for my daughter. She had her on it for, I think, 5 or 6 days. She couldn't wait to message me and say that her daughter's severe acne was like 60% gone in less than a week.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was just like, I was so touched by that, and she was like, I bought it for myself, but I guess I need to start buying it for her now too. It's just proof that every body can benefit from this, because every single one of us has an immune system that needs this intelligence.
Yeah. That's amazing. I know this is sounding too good to be true for people at this point. They're like, come on. You're saying that it's going to help me with cancer and with acne. But honestly, if you think about the mechanism of action, if you think about the fact that it is, like you said, it's part of us. It's like it's meant to be in us, working with our immune system to make it more intelligent. It's like raising its IQ.
Yes, exactly. That's what I say is, I think it's in my Instagram bio, sending your immune system to grad school. It's really like, if someone who gets cancer or whatever has kind of an immune system of an elementary, proverbial elementary, like, we're sending your immune system to grad school, and think about how much more you can get done and how effective you are. And it's kind of a silly analogy, but.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Now, I may have heard this, and this is going to speak to many people watching this. Did you say it helped you like grow your hair longer, grow it back, grow it, something like that? Talk about hair.
Well, yes. So it was a combination of things, but one of the major benefits of shiitake mushrooms that people don't know about is nail and skin and hair health and growth. The ancient Chinese, one of the reasons they used shiitake and ate shiitake was for its beauty and skin benefits. Once I started using AHCC and a combination of pulling things out of whether it be supplements or my diet, I kind of had to experiment with myself. But I really, really saw my skin. You would never know it now, but I did have horrible inflammatory acne, and I know AHCC was one of those things that really helped get my body back into balance and help with getting it under control. And my hair, for sure. Now, I did also stop bleaching it, so that has definitely helped. That was my own personal, it just kept breaking off. But it has helped it grow for sure. I don't make claims, but this is my own personal experience. And that's what happens when hormones get into balance, right? When our hormones are off and our body's just doing its absolute best to just keep us alive and functioning and getting out of bed and able to go to work, its very last thought is, wow, we need to grow beautiful long locks of hair just like Amie Hornaman. It's not thinking that. Thinking keep the girl alive, right? So whether it's nail health or skin or hair, when you get the body into balance, that's when people really see like, oh my gosh, my hair isn't falling out. It's actually growing. So yeah, I have these little baby hairs up here that I have like these like just constant bangs. Like you should see when I put my hair up, I have like I have bangs, but they're not bangs. They're just, it's just growth all the time, which I'm not complaining about, not sad about.
Right. No, not at all. Not at all. And that's, you know what? I love the way that you put that, because I always tell, especially my thyroid patients, the hair is going to come back to life last. Like your body, when we're optimizing someone's thyroid hormones, it's thinking about your energy and your mitochondria and your cells and your heart and your bones. And it's thinking about even your brain function. All of that's coming way before your hair. So that's going to be last. But I think the way that you put it is perfect. I mean, that's how it works, is decrease inflammation, improve the health of the person. Now we have time and effort to grow their hair.
That's intelligent.
Yeah. That is intelligent. Right.
I mean, the equivalent would be, giving the outside of your house a facelift, painting the shutters when the inside is infested and unlivable and no indoor plumbing. Like no one would do that. They would start on the inside where they live, where they spend their time, and then kind of work outward, this external, this what we equate to as beauty, right? I know it's external and it's always there and it's visible to other people, but long, beautiful hair on someone who's stuck in bed, like who cares?
Yeah, good point. I love it. I love analogies. Everyone knows I love giving analogies. So that's great. So like we said in the description, and I'll even throw some links in the comment section, we're putting a link in there of where you can purchase AHCC from Mimi, because she has gone through the extensive process of private labeling because of the quality aspect. And I'm going to let you expand on that a little bit more. But those who watch me, those who know me, know that I am a stickler for where you buy your supplements. So number one, my big rule is you never buy supplements from Amazon. You just don't. You do not know. And I give every patient this video of what can happen when you buy your supplements from Amazon. Literally a guy with workers in his kitchen filling capsules and selling the bottle on Amazon. You don't do that. And listen, the FDA does not have control over supplements. All in all, we're okay with that. We don't want their hands in it. But the downside is someone can have a label of AHCC and do these little sprinkle dust in it, and they can say that there's X amount of AHCC in it, and there's not. Same with proprietary blends. I don't like them. I want to know what is in the product and how much, and I want to be sure that I am buying from a reputable source. So talk on that for a moment.
Yes. Everything you just said, 100% couldn't agree more. And yeah, I have, what's really cool is I got the opportunity to actually travel to Japan. I was invited to the International Congress on Nutrition and Integrative Medicine last year. And I was able to visit the facility where they create all the AHCC in the world in Japan, Sapporo, Japan. And it was like a red carpet event for me. My eyes couldn't have been bigger. And so at this event, we were all presented with the newest research around AHCC. And part of this trip was visiting the facility so that each practitioner or educator, doctor, whatever, knows that it is where it's coming from. And so you have that confidence if you have a private label, or if you whatever the case may be, that you have this confidence when you recommend, because they should be giving the same advice that you are giving. Unfortunately, we live in a broken world, and there are people who will always look for shortcuts. They will always look for the quick dollar. And I encourage people, whether it's AHCC or whatever, whether it's vitamin D, if you can actually talk to a human and understand a little bit about the company, the history, why they opened, why they opened their doors, when did they open their doors? All of this goes into play with what you put inside your body and what you make part of your living cells and tissues, right? So with that in mind, I am absolutely confident in my product. It's called Immune Intel AHCC. I'm sure you can understand why. I know that I don't put anything else in those capsules. It is all AHCC. It's 750 milligrams per capsule of AHCC. So for someone who, you or me, Amy, who's just taking it for general health, I recommend 2 capsules a day. This isn't just for someone who has cancer or autoimmune or whatever. It's for anyone that has an immune system that wants to make sure that their intelligence is top notch all of the time, right?
Yep.
So I take it every day because I don't want a diagnosis. I don't want to get to that point where I'm backtracking and figuring out and peeling back the layers and getting to the root cause of things. I just don't want it to ever surface. So me, my man, we take probably close to 2 grams a day, 2 to 3 capsules, depending on, say we're traveling, we're going to up our dose a little bit. Say someone around us is sick, we're going to up our dose a little bit. But other than that, we take a maintenance dose, which is 2 capsules. Someone who has a more systemic issue, if we're talking about my capsules, then you would want to start with 3 grams a day, which might sound like a lot, but it's still a very, very low dose. It's kind of the minimal dose for systemic issues in the body. So research would recommend 2 capsules in the morning and 2 capsules in the evening sometimes, usually before meals is great. I will say the only caveat or contraindication, if you even want to call it that, is because AHCC is so powerful, it can interfere with a chemotherapy drug. I think it's Zofran. Does that sound familiar?
Yep.
And then also with Zoloft. So those 2 medications, it's okay. It's not going to hurt you. You're not going to die if you take it. It just can decrease the effectiveness of those medications. So just be aware of that. Right. And I think, did that answer your question as far as my capsules and everything?
Oh yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Because here's the thing, you want to notice a difference. Now, you and I have talked about this before, in healthier individuals that don't have a lot going on. Like you and I might not notice this big aha moment when we start taking it. Like your girl who in 5 days had her skin clear. But at the same time, if you do have a big, bad, ugly autoimmune disease, you're battling cancer, you're going through chemo, you have HPV, you have Lyme, you might want to up the dose and hit it. Just punch it hard in the beginning to get your body to respond, so that then you notice a difference and you can say, hey, this stuff is good. I'm going to stay on it. I feel better. And that's what it's all about.
Right.
You don't want to buy cheap, because then you're going to go, well, this doesn't work. I don't notice anything. Well, yeah, that's because you wanted to save $10 and buy it off of Amazon. And there you go. You didn't actually save 10. You wasted the 60 that you spent buying the bottle to save that $10, because now you have a bottle of nothing.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm using it on my pet too. I'm giving it to my dog because he's 10 and I want him to live till like 2025.
Yes, I love that. I recommend people can look on my Instagram. I have a lot of education there, but for pets, not only just treatment of, they do use it for arthritis and cancer and other type of tumors, but also just prevention. A lot of our pets, unfortunately, a lot of them die of cancer. It's not just old age, it's cancer, because their food, their water, their air supply is just as toxic as ours is. And unless you're feeding them organic, raw, grass-fed, all of the things, which most people aren't, usually they're getting kibble, right? Well, the basis of that is corn, usually GMO corn, which causes cancer in humans. It's absolutely going to cause cancer in pets eventually. So opening up a capsule into either wet food, or you can mix it with like bone broth and kind of pour that over there if they eat hard food. Usually, usually for dogs and cats, that usually works great.
And then what would the what's the dose that you recommend? I'm still waiting for mine to come, so I haven't started giving Riley anything yet. What would you say to start giving him? 1 or 2?
Well, it depends on the size. So if it's like a little dog, like say like a Yorkie or something, or a mini anything, one capsule, one of my capsules, the 750 milligrams should be just fine. If it's a larger dog, golden retriever, Rottweiler, German Shepherd, something like that, 2 capsules would be fine. But the thing is, AHCC is so safe. It is so safe. There has never been one reported overdose or, negative side effect. That sounds, again, too good to be true. But in clinical studies, they don't really note negative side effects. The only thing that they can say is sometimes it does give a person, a little more frequent bowel movements because it is such a good prebiotic, which is a good thing. We want that. But if there's a lot of gut dysbiosis, then some people can see, or your dog might see more frequent bowel movements, which for most people is a good thing. Let's be real. But some people, they might be like, oh, it gave me diarrhea, whatever. You needed that, honestly. So to your point, I kind of went on a rabbit trail there, but to your point, it's so safe. Mushrooms belong in us. If you're using medicinal mushrooms, it's literally impossible to overdose. You would die of renal failure from the water that it took to take those capsules before you would have negative side effect from the AHCC.
That's great. I love that too. Yeah. I love it. So we have the link. I have the link to where to purchase. We have a 10% off code. And I also have the link to Mimi's podcast, the medicine podcast, that you can listen to on iTunes. And if you go to her website, you can read more about her. And you're just so good at connecting with your clients too, if they do have questions. It sounds like they can pretty much reach out if they have something that they're not sure whether AHCC will work on or not.
Yeah, the best place to reach out is either Instagram, it's at getmimifit, and then or my website, which is getmimifit.com. There's a page on there. It says contact. Just go there and it goes straight to my inbox. I'm not on Facebook a lot, so if you send me a message, I might not answer it for a week because I don't go on there. Instagram and my website would be the best way to get to me.
Gotcha. Well, we have the links for that, and I'll even put more in the comment section too below. I do want to get to some people's questions here before I let you go. So the first question is, let's see here, about itching, ear infections, and how to relieve the itch. I guess that would kind of go along with the skin, right, Mimi?
Yeah, it depends. All they say is itching or ear infections.
Yeah, suffering from ear infections, chronic ear infections, and any idea how I can relieve the itch?
That's a hard one. Again, this would be because I don't know. Do they have psoriasis, eczema? Do they have a bacterial infection? I can say that usually for ear infections, when someone is given an antibiotic, they usually will continue to need those for a long, long time, unfortunately. Because you're not balancing the body, you're just killing bacteria. And then, so it's not actually getting to the root of the problem. So this would be one of those cases where I would say, try it for a month and see how you feel. It's so safe that I can recommend it to literally anyone.
Right. Does it get rid of it? Does it stay away and not come back? So yeah absolutely. And then Jan says, can you take this prophylactically for a healthy immune system? I mean, I can answer that, yes, but go ahead and expand on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, we mentioned it. I take it. I'm, generally healthy. I have no systemic or chronic issues. I recommend this for everyone that just wants to level up their immune system intelligence. And I don't want to get anyone canceled or censored here, but with a certain virus going around, I've had people come to me, and a husband and a wife, actually. The husband had cancer and they both got this virus, and they were both tested positive for it. And the man with the compromised immune system who had cancer, they were both on AHCC. Right. She was kind enough to give her husband her AHCC until they got their next bottle. And so she was off of AHCC. He didn't have any symptoms from this virus. She had worse symptoms from this virus. This review just came in a couple of days ago, and I was floored. So that gives me great confidence in recommending it for not only this virus, but there will always be viruses. There will always be millions and millions and millions of viruses that our body is coming into contact with every single day. So instead of relying on a mask, how about we level up our immune system to get that up to speed so that we can really handle anything that comes our way.
Right. And really, I mean, going into the fall, everybody better get ready because we've been shut down. We've been using hand sanitizer like it's going out of style, and it actually did go out of stock. So, everybody's hoarding their hand sanitizer, using it, wearing masks. We have now decreased herd immunity. We're going to be going into the fall when the kids go back to school, even if they're half days, and the colds are going to come. It might not be the virus, but the colds are going to come, and flu season's going to come. And your immune system is down if you've been loading up the hand sanitizer. It just is. So this is one way to get it back up.
Yes. And it's safe for kids too. Open up a capsule into yogurt, a smoothie, oatmeal, anything thick or hot, not just like water or juice. It'll just float on top, but give your kids this immune system intelligence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Mary asked about the effect on things like SSRI. So we did mention Zoloft as being the one that has a contraindication where it's not like it would cause serotonin syndrome. It just might prevent that from working as well.
Yes. Right. So mushrooms and mushroom products interact kind of uniquely with the brain. And so, it can just without going too deep into it, just be aware that it might decrease the effectiveness there.
Right. Okay. Brittany says, okay, I'm so intrigued. And then we talked a little bit about the side effects. I mean, really no known side effects, but she asked, can you start at a lower dose if you're normally sensitive to meds?
Sure, you can. You can absolutely start with one capsule and work your way up. I will say that if you're usually sensitive, 2 capsules should be just fine. If you're taking it for something systemic and you need to work up, I would say start with 2 capsules. Then if you're feeling okay, the next week add a 3rd, and then the next week add a 4th, so that you're at least getting that 3 grams, that therapeutic dose of AHCC.
Okay. No, that's perfect. And so on the dosing aspect, is it better to take it on an empty stomach or with food, or does it matter?
We see both in clinical research. Just to kind of keep it consistent, I tell people, and I think it's easier to remember before meals. So I take mine first thing in the morning. I actually blend mine into my coffee. So I'm getting it on an empty stomach. But it is food. It's not a medication. It is considered functional food. So that's one thing that I want people to remember. I've never heard of anyone coming back and saying that I took it on an empty stomach and it upset my stomach. We've seen it in both on an empty stomach and with food. So you're pretty safe either way, but just for consistency, I tell people before meals is great, just because I think it's easier for people to remember.
Okay. That's great. And that's right. We have to think of it as a functional food, not just because it's encapsulated, we call it a supplement. It's not a medication, but it is an actual food. So that's something to keep in mind. Yes. Another question is, would this help detox mold myotoxins? Does it cause herxing symptoms?
I do have people that are, one of my customers who's also another ambassador. It's completely changed her life, and she does have chronic Lyme and mold that she's been battling for years. She actually had to move out of her apartment because it was infested with mold, and get rid of all of her belongings. And AHCC has completely changed her life. So mold, yes, I would again recommend at least 3 grams to start with, and expect your body to need at least 3 or 4 weeks to really start to see a difference.
Okay, wonderful. And then Patty, she's asking this question to me. Do I think it should be taken separately from T3 and T4 medications like thyroid medications? Just in general, all supplements and food should be taken away from thyroid medications. So because this is a functional food, I would say, yes, you have to space out that 1 hour before and 1 hour after your thyroid medication before taking it, because it is considered a food.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So that is it. But I'm going to ask all of you, because I know it's summer. Mimi's on vacation. All y'all are on vacation. You're not on Facebook like you normally are right now, watching the live. So I'm going to ask you, those who are watching live and those who watch the replay, please share this. This is the only way we are going to get the message out about this powerhouse. I mean, I would call it a true miracle food because it does so many things. No side effects. We didn't even talk about pregnancy. Safe to take in pregnancy. I'll say it. You don't have to say it because of the no side effects. And I think this needs to get out there. It has to be shared on your page. Share it with people that you know. Tag people if they have any of the multitude of diseases that we talked about today, because this is just, it's important. And if you're catching this halfway through, go back and watch it from the beginning. I tell the story about how I connected with Mimi. It's just, I can feel it. I feel that this is something big and people need to be aware of it and learn about it, be on it, just for so many reasons.
Yeah, I agree. This is why I left my dental hygiene job, even though I loved it. I made great money and I was really good at it. Yep. This led me from dental hygiene. I couldn't not educate on just this, because there are so many people that need this information, and it's used mostly in medical institutions and organizations. It's not really broadcast to consumers, unfortunately. And so that's kind of where I come in. That's, like you said in your intro, I've committed myself to being the link from the common person listening to this who just wants to feel good and live a disease-free life, being that link from that person to the clinical research.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on here. I think this is incredible information. It's important information. People need to know it. So thank you for your time, taking time away from your vacation to just come on and educate people.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I am so grateful to you, because this is my ideal situation, is not speaking to one person at a time, but to really educate educators like yourself and practitioners, people who see multiple people every single day, that can help spread this disease prevention ripple that needs to grow. If we're going to live in a world that's disease-free, we cannot wait for medical textbooks to catch up. We cannot wait for medical schools to catch up. It's not going to happen. We need it now. That's why we need people to share with your loved ones, because when they hear this, most people can't not act.
Right.
Once you've heard it, once you know better, then you can do better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mimi. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Once again, I ask everyone to please share this, and Mimi, just hang on. We're going to end the live, but I want to chat with you a little bit. So thank you all for watching. Again, share this video. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week.
Bye.